Hi everyone, this is Craig on this side. Thank you for making time for us this afternoon. We're excited to bring you this first in the series of our webinars on MDM. This one titled The Role of MDM in Your Journey to Digital Transformation. It's hosted jointly between Nihilent and our partners Profisee. So just to do a quick round of introductions, joining me on the webinar today, I'm Craig. I'm with Nihilent, and I look after some of the alliances that we have with partners around the globe, and specifically here in South Africa. I'm based in Johannesburg. Joining us on the other side, Steve Vallis. He's the guy with the fancy haircut. He's connecting in from the UK somewhere, and he'll be taking us through a little bit on MDM and Profisee as a business and how they can help you. So I quickly wanted to just go through the agenda for today. I wanted to start by giving you a very short introduction to Nihilent, what we're about, and then we'll go straight into the section with how we partner with Profisee. I'll then hand over to Steve. He'll take you through the what, why, and how of master data management, and then we'll have a round of questions at the end. So to start about talking about Nihilent, I think we would define ourselves as a global consulting and solutions integration company using a holistic systems approach to problem solving. The business was started in the early 2000s. We're a 19-year-old organization, and it was started here in South Africa, and from here we spread our wings globally. Presently, we are in 6 countries around the world, and we have our corporate headquarters in India, as well as a delivery center in India. At any given point in time, we number about 1,500 to 1,800 people, depending on the projects that we're working on. Here in South Africa, there are about 400 people on the ground right now. So to talk to you a little bit about our service offerings, I think we've sort of sectioned it off into different quadrants. But I would say that the quadrants on the left-hand side is what represents our traditional business and how we started, and the quadrants on the right-hand side is where we're moving towards. The quadrants on the right-hand side, like digital transformation services and data science and analytics, is where we're seeing the most demand for growth in all the territories. And given the rate of cloud adoption in South Africa especially, the value of data has become one of the #1 areas of concern for all businesses in all industries. So to talk a little bit about our philosophy, you would have seen in the previous slide, right at the center was design thinking. And this is an approach and a philosophy that we do for everything. Everything we do at Nihilent starts with a design thinking approach. You'll see on the screen that there's 6 different stages that we define in that approach: sensing what the customer feels, empathizing, immersing ourselves in that customer's experience, then doing a little bit of defining and building, and then right at the end, validating that entire response to that particular problem. Also, I think what's important to mention at this point is we've recently inaugurated a design and user experience laboratory in Johannesburg. It's actually the first of its kind in Africa, and it's a replica of a facility that we've built in India. The purpose of this facility is to help customers build, test, and perfect ideas, products, applications, and interfaces that their customers are exposed to. This continual validation allows businesses to see their products and services through the eyes of their customers, so that the experience can be adapted to suit the fast-changing world that we live in. I'd encourage each of you to visit the lab. There's an obligation-free invite to come and have a look at the facility, and we can take you through its capabilities and what we can help you with. I'd say that the laboratory is almost a physical representation of our design thinking approach to solving business problems. So to move ahead, I've had a look at the list of attendees, and we're very grateful that you've joined us, and we're also lucky to have a very varied audience from retail, insurance, manufacturing, and a few other industry sectors. It's very interesting that data has such a crucial role to play in all these industries, and we've defined these 4 or 5 areas that businesses have challenges with, specifically with their data, whether it's predicting and identifying trends and understanding customer behavior. We found that a common problem in most businesses is that their data is in one way or another an impediment to getting real insights into the business. So today's session is on how to get the best out of your data in order to help you on that digital transformation journey. To talk a little bit about our data science practice, once you've got all your data under control, this is what allows you to get value out of it. And these are the 4 main areas that we focus on in our data science practice. These terminologies are very casually thrown around in business conversations these days. And what we help you with is ensure that you get actual real business benefits out of these concepts and technologies. So we can take you through the whole journey, and I think this is the last slide of my sales pitch for Nihilent. We will be able, once you've got your data, you need to put it somewhere, right? So we can help you build those data warehouses and data lakes to get your data structured or unstructured, and help you with the entire process of understanding how to move your data from its current state, whether it's on-premise or whether it's already in the cloud or it's in different applications spread across different data centers. We help you with that consulting approach. We help you with the migration, the implementation of a data warehouse or a data lake. Then comes the the visualization piece of it in terms of getting reports built. The data quality and governance is probably where we're going to focus on a lot today with our partnership with Profisee, and that's where they come in to the mix, and then enhancing the data and optimizing it and getting real insights out of it. So the next slide is just to talk a little bit about our partnership with Profisee. We're a global partner, so we have a presence in the 6 different territories that I've mentioned, and we work with them in those territories also. We have a team of certified resources that can deploy these projects and can work both in an onshore or offshore delivery model depending on what the customer prefers. In some cases, we find that customers want to get the benefit of an offshore delivery from a cost point of view. Some customers prefer to have the interaction with people on the ground where they can interact with them on a day-to-day basis. So it's entirely up to the customer how they would prefer an engagement. The options that we're going to talk about today are available both in an on-premise variation and in the cloud. So we're not just preaching about cloud adoption and moving to cloud. If you have made investments on hardware in an on-premise environment, then this solution can also work for you. And then, like I mentioned in the previous slide, we can help you with the end-to-end approach to data management. So to get started, we want to start with a quick poll. You'll see something pop up on your screen, and with a question on your data governance maturity. Please take a moment now to give us an idea on how you think you fare in that area. And Steve will touch on this later on in his slide. So I'm going to hand over to Steve now, and he's going to take over and take us through the rest of the presentation. I'll talk to you later on.
Thank you, Craig. I'll give you a few minutes for, well, a minute or so for everyone to vote. So, yeah, as Craig says, hello from the UK. It's probably one of the last sunny days. Obviously, we're entering our autumn and winter, while you lucky folks in South Africa are getting towards your spring and summer. So I'll be looking forward to my next visit to spend time with Nihilent and prospects in South Africa very soon, especially as it starts to get colder and colder here. I'd like to thank you all today for your time, and especially for Nihilent for the invitation to speak. So in the short time available this afternoon, I hope to provide a simple overview of what master data management can do to help with the wider data and transformational projects. It is quite a deep conversation, but obviously today we'll keep it quite general, and so cover off, hopefully raise some questions, answer some questions, and get some debate going by the end of this presentation. So hopefully I now have control. Let me just, okay, so you'll find multiple definitions of master data management. The one I would ignore the most is Wikipedia. I'm not a big fan of that. But I got bored with going on and changing it because someone kept going on and changing it back. So basically, choose the one you like best. I mean, in fact, define your own as it relates to your business. And I think that's beyond the sort of the master data management is an overriding sort of pillars, and we'll talk some more about that shortly. But it will provide you with, regardless of your definition, a foundation upon which to build out all your projects, whether those are, as Craig has mentioned, data warehousing, business intelligence, machine learning, artificial, all of the new cutting edge technologies, chatbots, AI. Without reliable data, success will be more potluck than anything you can actually plan for. I'd like to start you with a quick quote. So this is a quote from Bill O'Kane. Until very recently, Bill O'Kane was the lead analyst for the master data management at Gartner. He was responsible for building the Gartner Magic Quadrant for master data. So this was built out over the last 8 or 9 years. It's been in existence. By his own estimation, he's had about 2,500 or more than 2,500 conversations with clients regarding MDM projects. And these conversations had been pre-project, during projects, post, and sort of autopsies of projects that in some cases have been successful, but in many cases going back over certainly 4 or 5, 6 years ago in the early stages of this, that projects that weren't so successful. So he's had a lot of learning. He recently joined Profisee only about 8 weeks ago, so we're privileged to have him on board. As I said, somebody with his depth of knowledge of the market. But the one takeaway from this, and obviously I don't need to read it out for you, but basically it not only makes it possible, but it's making it work and making your digital transformation efforts actually return what you hope. We all go into projects hoping for solutions, hoping for the returns that we expect, and in many cases, digital transformation being the catch-all that it is, they don't deliver. What MDM can do is take away some of those, take away some of the improbabilities and the lack of knowledge and lack of expectation. So everybody talks about digital business. Sometimes something as simple as an online form can be someone's digital business, or it can be a starting point. However, as soon as your aspirations start to include things like omni-channel sales, intelligence, automated business intelligence, dashboards, automated sales, advice solutions, anything like the chatbots or the more cutting edge technologies, and as soon as that human interaction is taken out of the processes, then your systems are only as good as the data that you feed them. I would expect everybody on these calls at some point in the last couple of years have experienced some form of data issue, whether this be duplicate marketing, poor customer service. Only very recently I changed insurance companies, and I think I had 4 or 5 additional letters post cancellation with my old insurance company telling me that I was uninsured, even though I had new insurance and I'd gone through the process and cancelled it properly. These poor customer service issues stay with people, and if it is only poor customer service, you might lose one customer. If you're starting to get something more serious like fraud or regulatory issues, you could be losing all of your customers or a vast majority of them. So understanding that that digital business is driven by data and what it can do and how we can help it is key to the businesses. So in business, we have simple questions. Should be simple answers. How many customers do we have? Vendors, suppliers, who are we buying from? If we're buying across borders, if we're buying through different parts of our business, are we getting the best deal from a supplier, or is a supplier charging us different prices in different regions? These should be simple answers, and these are the simple questions, so they should have simple answers, but they become increasingly harder and harder as our data's got spread around cloud providers, around different ERP solutions, in CRM, as mergers and acquisitions go on and we take on new organizations that have another ERP solution or have data in a slightly different form. So answering these questions is where master data starts to come into its own. Quick definition, as I said, we start with the what. What is master data? A good definition of master data is data that changes slowly and is generally shared across multiple systems. So for example, someone's address, it will change, but it is not something that's changing on a transactional basis. Names, email addresses, while again they might change, they do so rarely. However, all of this information, whether it be addresses, email addresses, and names, they'll be required in the high velocity in the transactional data sets, such as orders, invoices, statements, reminders to get your insurance renewed. So all of it has to be mastered, and all of it exists in many, many places between CRMs and ERPs. Data management covers multiple disciplines, and this is one of the other complications that we try and sort of break down, and working with companies such as Nihilent in Project Place, we try and we cut through the shadows and actually try and explain. If you can think of any particular journey that data starts, data takes, it starts with ingestion. So this might be from an internal system, such as a CRM or ERP system or a shipping system or any form of internal database. However, this data might also come from external and less controllable applications. So these may be coming off directly from web forms. It may be coming from your website. It may be coming from your chatbots, partner sites, vendor sites, third-party providers, or any mix of the above. Before we start mastering the data, you need to consider governance. So the cataloging, the glossary, making sure those policies are in place. And again, I'll come on to that some more in a moment. Once into the master data management scope, there are multiple approaches. You can have your data quality and your verification processes. You can have your standardization when it comes to maybe using external systems for address verification. And then you get into the more advanced, the matching, the harmonization, survivorship procedures, commonly described as your golden record, your single view, your single view of the truth, and then almost anything with 360, customer 360, supplier 360 has become the latest catchwords. So even from this one graphic, you can see that there is no one correct way to deliver a master data management project or data governance or data quality. They all intermix with each other. And it's a question of what works best for your business, what works best for your requirements. And it doesn't have to be all done in one large project. Again, we go back, looking back into sort of the days of 8, 9, 10, and even further back. These projects would typically last 2, 3, 4 years and maybe not ever deliver the solutions that they were supposed to. If you can break down and if you can work with an organization like Nihilent to work out your priorities, to actually start taking this down into bite-sized chunks, then you can actually get success very quickly, get further business buy-in, and then actually move forward into your fuller projects. So let's get into the why. Why should we worry about master data? We've touched on it at the beginning. You can't move on with the other digital transformation. If your data is poor to start with, your decisions will be poor. So digital transformation has been a term used, and I think probably overused, for around about 30 years now, back into the 90s. Each decade had a slightly different idea of what this term meant. But now, as we rapidly approach 2020, it's unlikely that anybody on this webinar is not either part of or aware of a transformation project happening in your businesses. It's also very unlikely that any of those projects are not going to be heavily reliant on the data your organizations either possess now or intend to possess. Now, whether this be through purchasing, whether this be through merger and acquisition, or whether it be just through the data that's available through companies such as we've heard, like Facebook and LinkedIn, and that data that they can get to us. A couple of slides ago, I asked a simple question: how many customers? Are the vendors the same? How much do we buy from each supplier? We can't answer these questions because the data is siloed, or in different CRM or ERP solutions, or commonly on a spreadsheet on somebody's desktop. Then the best we can hope for is to lose out on a few sales opportunities. If luck isn't on our side, as we mentioned at the beginning, then our strategic planning is going to be based on incorrect data, or we might even run foul of privacy or regulatory requirements, and that can cause, well, irreparable and long-lasting damage. So why hasn't every company and every organization undertaken an MDM project? This is our, and we align very closely with Gartner on this, this is our data management journey quadrant. Every company, and said we'll look at the poll results, every organization is in a different place in their data management journey. So at the moment, the market penetration is somewhere around the 10 to 12% mark. And those 10 to 12% are in the top right-hand corner. These were the companies that had adopted a strategic approach. They'd actually aligned the business, they put together enough of a business case, and a lot of this was regulatory or sometimes in terms of sales, to ensure that they could spend the millions and millions of dollars that old MDM projects used to take to deliver anything. On the left axis is the MDM viewpoint. Companies with a broad MDM viewpoint, they understand MDM can solve their data challenges. On the bottom is business engagement. So think of business engagement as business stakeholders who understand data management. They understand the value it can deliver. They've bought into it. So that gives you your top right-hand corner, because everything is aligned, the heavens have aligned, and IT and business have decided that the outcomes and the returns are worth the investment. At the same time, every other company we meet wants to know, and nobody doesn't want to know the answers to the customer question, the supplier question, the vendor's question. So what's stopping them? And again, what stopped them was the prospect of it being a massive, not master, but massive data management project. The smart ones, and I think many on this company, the smart ones did nothing. Everything was too costly, everything was too complex. Profisee has turned this, along with our partners in Nihilent, have turned this on the head. We've put systems together that allow the strategic to become to be done at a much lower cost and a much lower starting point, and allow this to be scaled up as the business requirements change. So some organizations have a broad vision for data management, but limited buy-in. So these are at the top left. They'll have, the business will realize as a requirement, but IT have an insufficient knowledge to deliver it. And then if we look at the bottom right, we have IT, the IT knows there is an issue, knows they can solve it, but the business doesn't seem the value in the delivery. So ultimately, what we need to do is, and Nihilent can help you do this, is work with the business, work with IT to educate, work with the business to deliver the return, and move everybody through the maturity of the program environment in the direction of the arrow. And in that way, you can answer those questions, you can solve the issues that the business is having without having to wait for 18 months or 2 years to get the delivery. Master data management is not a technology-led process. We're going to talk in a moment about the human aspect and the organizational aspect. Projects will only succeed with organizational change. But if you get the business and IT working together, you ensure the ownership, the responsibility, and the benefits can actually be spread across the whole organization. You should have a success within a master data management project. As originally set out by Gartner and now generally accepted by the industry, there are 6 disciplines of master data management. You will see in a moment, most of them are people-led, most of them are organizational-led, and most of them lead to having an enablement with technology as an effective project. So I can go through them just one at a time here. So governance. Everybody requires directives. Everybody requires, generally from the top down, to get buy-in from people to ensure that you've got a team in place that can manage, can decide on the data stewardship, can decide on the people and the project management. You must be able to measure. You've got to be able to measure against your stated goals. You've got to be able to see if the data quality rules are being followed, and this must be a continuous improvement. The organization I mentioned already, this cannot be IT led. The business needs to be involved. Many organizations now have CDOs. If it doesn't sit with the CDO and it's not at a C level, then the CIO, or in a lot of cases even driven from the CEO from a business side. But that input, that sponsorship is key to any MDM program. Ensuring the policies, once they've been decided, once you've got these in place and you know what your data stewards are going to look like, you know what your governance is going to look like, the policies need to be written, they need to be adhered to, and they need to be understood by everybody within the business. Finally, before the technology, the processes. Again, this comes down to changing the organization. There are multiple ways that a master data management project can be delivered. They can be delivered where all data goes through the master data management hub, and people stop using existing solutions other than for reporting. They can be delivered in a coexistence style, where actually the data transfers between them, and all applications within the infrastructure are kept up to date. But that has to be decided. So once all those 5, and this is the work that Nihilent would do prior to the technology start, once all this has been aligned, we then enable through technology. And the technology stack should be something that can easily adapt to what you've decided your master data management project will entail. It shouldn't then be another step to change what you've already decided to fit in with the technology that's available to you. So just to round up, I'd like to sort of run through a simple use case that I think hopefully some of it will ring true with your current position and current situation. So we have a lady here called Deborah Varchi. She's a lovely lady, but she exists in multiple forms in our enterprise. So let's start with CRM. Typically, CRM is the first point of entry for a lot of information into companies. It is used a lot by salespeople. It can be used a lot in a rush because all salespeople are always in a rush. So immediately we've got a crossover. Somebody knows her as Deborah, somebody knows her as Deb. You might even, I mean, this is only 3 for space, but there could be a Debbie in there. And you've also got misspellings because that's what people do. So the first thing you will do with an MDM solution is correct. So you'll correct that information and give you that single look, that single view in your MDM of Deborah Varchi. So then we move on to the ERP. The ERP might be missing an email because it's not been updated or it's been changed, or Deborah Varchi has joined and is new. We might want to enrich that data with a DUNS number or other credit system. we also might want to ensure that the credit rating information is in there. This becomes especially important when you're going across borders. So you might have credit exposure in multiple time zones, in multiple countries, and in multiple continents, where you need to have a single view of who exactly Crete Carrier Corp is and who you're going to be selling to and who you're going to be exposing your risk to. So we can enhance. We can enhance with external systems. They can be treated as data sources in the same way as your internal systems can be. So this can be systems such as Expedia or Credit Control or Dun & Bradstreet. Next, we move to our supply chain. We look at our supply chain system. If you've got any delivery, whether it's delivery mechanisms of logistics or delivery mechanisms of even letters, if the address is wrong, you're leaving yourself exposed to obviously delivery issues, obviously, but even when it comes to credit cards and insurance information, if that detail hasn't been shared or if the address has changed, you are leaving yourself open to regulatory or certainly customer service issues. So we can update our SCM system as new addresses change. We can use that as a single unified point. So we're almost together. We've almost got our complete picture of Deborah, and then we get to our BI. Nothing is likely to show you the extent of the issues with your data as business intelligence and dashboards. Once we've got everything in and we have our single, we've harmonized, we've worked our survivorship, and we have our single golden record, we then know that everything going out into our dashboards, everything being delivered into our data warehouse, and all of our business intelligence and our strategic thinking is correct. We have a single Crete Carrier Corporation, we have a single contact, and we have all of the supplied information harmonized across all of our systems. And this is what a master data management hub can do for you. So this brings me to my last slide. I hope this whistle-stop tour of master data management has answered some questions, maybe made you think a little about your own organizations, maybe dispelled some myths and possibly given you a better idea of the role that MDM might play in your digital transformation strategies. My finishing points are in reference to the first, the small 8-letter word used twice in the statements above, and that word is trusted. A well-delivered, well-managed and well-governed master data management project will deliver data that's trusted, insights that can be trusted, dashboards that can be trusted. And then when it comes to AI and machine learning, you'll get outputs that can be trusted. And ultimately, your digital transformation outcomes that can be trusted by your business, your execs, your customers, your suppliers, and everybody else that it will impact. I'd like to thank you for your time and pass you back over to Craig, and hopefully I'll remain here if there's any questions to answer moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And thanks for that insightful tour, of whistle-stop tour, like you said, on MDM. I've just started the second poll, and you'll see something pop up on your screen shortly. Just to give us a view of what you think of what you've just heard, and whether there's any conversations that we can take forward from this. I'm just going to invite Caitlin back on, and just to run through any questions that we've got. I think somebody has already asked me if they were to start, what would be the starting point to this? And I think probably that's a question for Steve. How would we actually start an engagement with a customer?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. Obviously, I'd probably clearly want to know a little more, but we can get into specifics. But I think if you're looking for business buy-in, the first step is to understand either the largest pain or the pain that is either costing the most money, reducing sales by the most, or causing the most regulatory risk. And as I mentioned earlier on, take that bite-sized small project, mini project, call it what you will, tackle that, show that that works, ensure that you've got the business stewards and the buy-in, and then deliver that back and show that as a success. So it might be, again, without some context, it might be in a sales environment. You might have a very large marketing spend, and in fact, actually, one of our clients is Domino's Pizza, which you probably know. Domino's Pizza describe themselves as not a pizza company, but a data company who sells pizza. So they're franchised. Their single biggest spend as a central marketing environment is marketing, and they had many versions of the same person, so that their marketing, at one stage they thought they had 600 million clients in the United States, which is almost everybody, which is unfeasible. Working with us and working around a mastering solution, they brought that down to, they actually brought it down to a priority of 100 million clients that they wanted to market heavily to. So I think their cost reduction, even in the first 6 months of with their marketing spend, was somewhere in the region of $5 to $6 million a month. Now, not everybody's scale is going to be like that, but if you can find that hurt point and you can find somebody in the business who wants to own that project and sponsor it from ideally the top down, then that would be a great starting point.
Excellent, thanks, Steve. Caitlin, just handing back over to you for questions.
Yes, there is a question from Daniel. He says, do you recommend to use the use of a PMI in addition to an MDM solution for customer-facing e-commerce applications?
Yes, they are different. Obviously, we'd have to look at the specific use case. If it was quite narrow, then it may be possible to not use both, but typically they do deliver different functions. So it'd be a great question, something for Craig and maybe of us to investigate the specific use case. I've probably a non-answer. I've seen it done in both ways, but we've certainly worked with PMI tools in a couple of clients in the US.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. Anybody else have a question? Either raise your hand, or if you want to type it in the questions, we can either unmute you or I can read it out loud.
Steve, while we're waiting for those questions, what would you say is your take on the adoption of master data management, especially in our South African market? Have you seen problems in certain industries that you could talk about?
It's starting to grow. Clearly, as I think I mentioned at the beginning, the actual global uptake is still somewhere between, depending who you speak to, somewhere between 10 and 20%. Every time somebody, whether it be a new CRM adoption, an ERP migration, or starts to do work around AI and machine learning, it then raises it. So it's becoming a bit like a snowball. There are past issues where people, as I said, have gone into this 8, 9 years ago, where these were humongous projects, and they would take, well, they didn't deliver, but even what they didn't deliver would take 2 years not to deliver anything. There are a few people that had been bitten in the past, and this is exactly what Profisee is trying to, and is working closely with Microsoft, working closely with our partners, and working closely with Gartner to turn this on its head and really make it that any company that wants to benefit from their data should be able to employ a master data management project. So it's still growing. There is some way to go, but we're doing our best to ensure the sort of the democratization of MDM.
I think one of the probably very useful things for MDM, especially in a South African context, is during mergers and acquisitions. I would think that there would be many opportunities for data to be mistrusted when it's coming from different companies and all being consolidated into one business. Do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely great point. Yes, you're quite right. The typical process when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, and it goes through virtually everybody in those positions, are do we let somebody continue running on their own within their own, whether it be Microsoft, SAP environment, Oracle environment, whatever it happens to be, and then somehow fudge the numbers together when it comes to global reporting? Or do we very, very quickly go through the pain of an ERP migration? Now, it might be slightly simplified if you're both on the same, exactly the same version of exactly the same ERP platform, but that doesn't often happen. Whereas if you actually put in a master data hub, you can take and ingest data from both systems, allow them to run independently and reduce your cost and risk, early stage risk, but actually get that reporting, get the benefits of cross-sell. Now, this is the other thing. So you can reduce your risks, as I mentioned, with the credit control. You can get the immediate benefits of cross-sell, and you can actually get your cost savings in terms of the admin and everything else done very much quicker than building out or trying to change an ERP around. And that's just ERP, not figuring in CRM solutions, and then back to our the dreaded desktop Excel sheet or something that's in somebody's head. So yeah, absolutely. One of our just a specific use case is a mainly European and US, but a global dental conglomerate called Danaher Dental, who are clients of ours. Again, I think you'll find them on the website, or I'm happy to have a broader discussion. But that was purely around they've grown rapidly and continue to go rapidly through merger and acquisition. And every time they do now, it's that there is still a process, there is still a mapping process, but immediately they can start with real-time integration into whether it be a Microsoft, an SAP, an Oracle solution, and bring it into the master hub in a matter of weeks, which anybody who's been through any kind of ERP migration or transfer knows that you haven't even started thinking about an ERP transfer in weeks, let alone getting any results.
Fantastic. And I'm going to jump back in as we have a few more questions for you guys. One question is your solution multi-domain?
Yes, absolutely. No, we've come from completely from multi-domain. Whether this is obviously a lot, customer is very important in retail, but we have product, we have customer location, and yes, the most successful projects, even if they start with a single domain, move into multi-domain, because as I mentioned in one of my earlier slides, the customer data or the address data will always exist in multiple domains, and if you only master one of them, then you're only doing half of the job.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. And then the next question we have is, how do you compare MDM to customer data platforms? Customer data platforms claim to deliver customer 360, single view, and cut across silos. So same high-level benefits in those claims. Interested to hear your perspective.
Yeah, there is quite a degree of crossover. Again, the customer data platforms is starting to grow more. They tend to be quite focused around the CRM solution, and as I said, customer 360. When you start getting into a true multi-domain MDM is when it starts crossing out of that customer domain and actually taking data from not just within the customer side, but external domains, ERP, supply chain, and every other sort of form of source. I haven't got huge experience with specifics, and I'm happy to sort of take this offline with any specific use case, but it would be that customer 360 using it other external domains to the sort of the CRM and the typical ones would be where a multi-domain MDM solution would come into its own.
Fantastic. Any other questions that you guys have? Again, you can do the chat window or the questions window, or if you want to raise your hand, you can ask the question out loud. All right. And again, you can always ask questions afterwards. We'll be sending out an email with Steve and Craig's emails, so you can always get in touch with them again. All right. Well, with that, I think we are going to close the webinar. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Craig and Steve, for your time and your insights around master data management.
And thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Cheers.